Welcome back to the channel. This game features Nigel's first round game in the British Championship, which he played after becoming a Grandmaster in the Denmark tournament. His opponent was James Howell, an up and coming IM from England as well, around the same age as Nigel. The game started as a Sicilian Defence, and as you'll see, it's quite a topsy-turvy game. The Nigel variation, but then goes into the shenanigan variation. And White plays quite aggressively, pushing in the centre. Here Black kicks the knight, which retreats to e2, allowing Black to stake a claim in the centre. And here Black plays d5, and this gives an advantage to White. I think e takes f4, bishop takes f4. And this variation, I think it would be quite equal. Black has attacking chances. White's king's quite exposed, but though he's going to probably castle queenside. And it's a very dynamic game. But he plays d5, trying to sort of clarify what's going on in the centre. And this just reinforces the e4 pawn. And now we do get opposite side castling, which leads to quite a fiery game. And here Nigel decides to close down the king side, or at least the centre, by refusing the exchange and pushing on with the f-pawn, which I think is a bit of a mistake. I think g5 would have been the better push. And after knight d5, I think White's got a nice comfortable position and has got a slight advantage. Black can trade the bishop for the knight and has the open c-file, but White's pawns on the king side look quite dangerous. He plays f5 to sort of block down the position. Obviously g5 is still a threat. And Black continues with his queenside push to try and force the knight away from the b3 square and start his own pawn push on the queen side. And this move kind of walks straight into it. Strange move from Nigel. Again, I think g5 would have been a much better option. And then after mass exchanges on the e4 square, White would still be worse, but it looks a lot better than it would do when you after king to b1, which kind of just gives the tempo away, because a4 is coming and White's going to have to move the knight. Maybe c1 might have been a better square there, but it's still quite a dodgy position for White now. But after this move, I think Black gives all of his advantage away. I think a3 is the move, because even after g5 and a takes b2 can be played, because if White does take it back, queen to a5, and I think White's just losing now. The threats of queen a3, queen a2, and just severe pressure on the king. And even take it, he will get mated if he's not careful. But b3 seems to just sort of allow Black to sort of allow White to play g5 if he wants to, and there's no immediate threat of queen a5 or anything like that opening up the a file. But again, Nigel decides to play b3 a3, which is not a good move. He should have just played g5 and carried on with his own attack. This just loses a tempo and actually loses material. Pushing the bishop back. And here, black's got a very nice tactic, which is bishop takes a3. Or even b takes c2 in this, even before the d4 move. Because the bishop takes a3 is just opening up the king, and his king position, white's king position, looks terrible. And queen b6 is coming. He's got the open c file, and there's all sorts of pressure. And the engine thinks black's winning. And to be honest, it's the sort of position you wouldn't want to play as white. But black did play d4 first, forcing the bishop away. But again, it still works. Bishop b takes c2 would have been a good move. Also, bishop takes a3 would have been a good move, just opening up the king and opening up all the lines. But he plays knight to c5, which is hitting the bishop, but does allow white to start his own attack. And I think this is where black starts to go wrong, because I think if it had opened up white's king, I think he would have won the game. So Nigel plays g5, and the pawns are exchanged on c2. And here he plays knight to g4, which is obviously offering the trade. If queen takes g4, then d3 will trap the bishop and get the piece back, which actually does happen in the game. But again, white probably had better options in playing f6. And even after the exchanges here and d3, he's now got the option of playing something like bishop b3 or something like that, or even take the pawn. Well, no, I don't think taking the pawn would be an option, but or even rook to c1. It's not a nice position, but again, it would have been possibly better than he played, because even though he's a pawn up in this position, it's not a nice position for white to try and hold. The knight's beautifully outposted on d3. But then this is the move which kind of loses all the advantage. Queen to d7. Rook to c8 really should have been played to challenge the open c file, because now white's got the c file and is quite comfortable. But Nigel plays rook to d1, which is actually a blunder, and it's missed by both players. The idea is you can play knight takes b2 now in this position, and the king takes b2, queen to b5 check, king to a1, and queen to d3 forks the bishop and rook, and also threatens the a3 pawn. Knight to c4 will defend one, but then obviously the rook would fall. He could take with the rook, but this would lead to even worse in the fact that queen to d3 can be played. And this is just winning for black after queen takes a3, king back, and queen to b3 again check. And then he can pick up the bishop as and when he wants to. So yeah, so missed by both players, and after rook to d1, Howell played rook to c8, which is a natural move, but obviously didn't see knight takes b2. and now the position is quite equal. Nigel plays knight to c4, which uncovers a pin on the d3 knight, puts pressure on the e pawn, and Howell steps out of the pin whilst defending the e pawn. But I think White's now got the advantage because he's going to lose. He's going to lose the powerful d3 knight. I mean, Black could have played bishop a6 after something like this would have led to a draw by perpetual. But yeah, which would have been a nice result for Howell. But he plays queen to b5, which is a mistake because after rook takes d3 and the trade of rooks, White's now got a comfortable position. He's got an extra pawn now. He's got a kingside attack that's still in full flow. And Black's pressure's non-existent now. And f6 comes with the fact that obviously he can't take the pawn with the g pawn because of losing the bishop. So the bishop has to run away. And f takes g7. Again, knight f5 could have been played in that position. And Howell takes back with a king, which I think's a bit of a mistake. He might be able to play rook to e8. But this check again, bishop c5 could have been played in this position, putting more pressure. But now this looks very, very nice for White. Forking the queen and bishop, which Black gets out of, but you can tell that he's thing. But again, then Nigel plays another inaccurate move, offering a trade of queens, which should be good for White because he's a pawn up, but it's less clear than it should be. I think queen to g3 hitting the e pawn would have been a very strong move because there's no clear way that Black can defend the e pawn, and this would have caused Black serious problems. But Nigel offered the trade of queens, which Black should have taken, but didn't. He went to queen to e2. Again, this is just losing now because the e pawn will drop. And after f6, the white queen just drops away, maintaining the pin. Hitting the rook. And White just takes the pawn with the idea that the rook can't be taken. It actually is in the game, and Nigel actually misses a mate in two, maybe because it was the 40th move and he may have been under time pressure. He actually, in the game, he actually takes the bishop back, but if he plays f7, that's a very, very nice checkmate. And it wasn't hard to find, so I'm assuming he must have been in time trouble. Otherwise, he would have found it quite comfortably, I think. He takes the bishop back. Obviously, now the king can come out of danger, but and again another miss from Nigel. He plays bishop to h6, rook to queen to c7 would have won the game. With the pressure on g7, which Black has to defend, and this mate will follow now, as the king's going to be forced into the corner or out into the middle of the board. So Nigel plays bishop to h6 and loses his f pawn, but now queen to c7 does come with the threat of queen g7 mate. If he did take the rook, then Black's got a very nice resource in the fact that he can swap the pieces off, and queen to b1 is actually a very nice move because it actually ends in stalemate, which is quite amusing. Thankfully, Nigel didn't fall for that and played queen to c7, threatening checkmate. and the only way black could really defend it was to give up the bishop. Obviously, black gets the bishop back on h6, but now white has a series of checks. Knight to e5 threatens queen f7 check and queen f8 mate, which has to be defended. And h4 pushes obviously can't be taken because of the same queen f7 queen f8 check. And rook to a6 is a loose move because eventually the rook's going to be picked up by the checking queen. And in this position, Howell actually resigned. The idea is if after queen to d7, king to g8, and queen to c8 will pick up the rook. And if he plays, the rook comes off, the knight comes off, and now white's 3 pawns to the good, or 2 pawns to the good, sorry, and just winning. I'm not sure where. Yeah, I'm not sure if black could go to G. I think G anywhere on the back line. The queen to C8 would pick up the rook. So in this position, Howell resigned. A win for Nigel, but a very topsy-turvy game. A game I don't think he would be very happy with. Lots of chances on both sides. Quite a complicated game. Please like and subscribe if you enjoyed the video. Hope it wasn't too long and complex, or it was quite an interesting game. Until next time, thanks very much. Bye.